Hello and welcome to Logic. My name is Tim McKenzie and I'll be your instructor this semester. Um, I hope you will enjoy the course as we begin to learn a little bit about what logic is, which is basically the study of right reasoning. How do we reach conclusions, prove the points we're trying to make? Basically, how do we construct things so that they actually say what we want them to say and prove what they want them to say? This course is online, and as most of you have done. And so sometimes people will tell me when they take this course, they'll say, "This is the first time I've taken an online course. What do I need to do to be successful?" Sometimes they'll just tell me that. And so I always like to sort of begin by saying, as far as how to be successful in an online course, is I say two, maybe three things. One is set aside time. With a real life class, you know what day it meets, when it meets, where it meets. And if you miss, you missed it. And you may decide to miss it, but you also know you missed it. With an online course, you don't have to go at any specific time, but as a result, it's very easy to forget about it and let it fall to the back of your mind. That's true even for me as an instructor and for everybody. There is not a set time and place. And so one of the things you have to do is you have to set aside time and a place to say, I'm going to work on this at this time. So make sure to set aside time early so that you can be sure to work on it. Also, the other thing I say that's important to being successful in an online course is if you have a question, you can't just nudge your neighbor and say, "Hey, what's going on here?" Or just ask the instructor before class, or raise your hand and ask the question, or have somebody else do it. You have to ask. And so sometimes I don't know you even have a question. So if you have a question, make sure to ask it. Don't think you're bothering me. That's what I'm here for. Ask me the question, email me, get a hold of me, send me a text, call me, whatever. But don't just let a question you're not sure about slip by, because cases I may not even know, and maybe 5 other people in the class had the exact same question. I just don't know that. And so don't be afraid to ask. The other thing I would say about online success is set aside a little bit of time every day. Don't just set aside like one day a week or one day every module to do it. Do a little bit every day, because logic is a class that really is best taught by doing it slowly and incrementally. It's sort of like pouring water into a funnel. If you take it and you just dump it over, it's going to spill all over. But if you pour it slowly, it'll go down that funnel and it will do fine. And I think logic is a course that really is one that's prone towards, people do a little bit every day, a little bit, and they get a better and better understanding. It's repetition and doing it slowly. If you try to cram it, it just doesn't go well. I mean, for some of you who really get logic and it's easy to you, you might be able to cram it. But for those who don't, it becomes very difficult. And for most people, I would say for half of people, it is one of those things that, they will get it better if they take their time and work on it a little bit each day. As far as the class goes, logic is one of those that, if you're having difficulty and you're not understanding, it can be very isolating. So in that regard, I think logic is one of these that, I always kind of, I hope that, if you have questions, you will reach out, because don't let yourself, get frustrated. There are questions in the book that you'll be given to answer, but the answers are in the book. And sometimes you'll look at the answers are online, under the resources tab. And if you begin to become confused, you might go, "I just don't get this. What am I supposed to be doing?" And you don't understand it. Don't just let yourself get frustrated. Come and talk to me. I am in my office from 12:30 to 2:30, 2:30, Tuesday and Thursday. Ugh, I don't know why I keep getting tongue twisted there. But on Tuesdays, I know I'll be there late. I have a group of students I'll meet with in the late afternoon and early evening sometimes. And so, I will be around till, 7 or 8 most Tuesdays. And Thursday, I'll be around fairly late as well. Email me if you're beyond 2:30 p.m. But if you have a question, I should be around. I'm also in Litchfield and Taylorville on those mornings for a class from 10 to 11:20. If you're in those areas and you have a question and you want to meet up, that probably can be arranged, but you'd have to email me about that. So just kind of want to give you a chance to say I am around. Don't be afraid to call, email, text, but also don't be afraid just to stop by or to set up an appointment. As far as the course goes, it is modular in format. Modular is basically where everything's sort of broken into these self-contained units, where there's, a lesson, there's an exam, everything is sort of there. And the beauty of that is some of these modules can be kind of confusing and difficult, and people go, oh, I don't get it. And the beauty is we will move on to the next module, and, it will start a new set of material. The bad news is sometimes those do build upon each other, and some of that information will break on into the next module. So you need to be aware that some of the material will be used beyond that. But oftentimes we will shift gears significantly enough that if you're really having trouble with categorical logic, Venn diagrams, don't worry, we're going to get to truth tables, and that's a completely different approach. We'll eventually get to propositional logic, or we'll eventually get to inductive logic, and we'll get to fallacies, and all these things will shift the course significantly enough that you may not feel quite as overwhelmed. So just kind of keep that in mind, that each module in some ways begins fresh, although the other side is some of that information, some of that understanding does offer a building block for the next one, but it's not necessarily going to be essential. Now, all modules are due at 11:59 p.m. on Mondays. The only exception is this first one is actually due on Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. because there's a holiday, Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. In observance of that, we take the day off. That includes our online courses in order to reflect and celebrate that holiday. As far as it goes, everything else, though, beyond that will be due on a Monday at 11:59 p.m. Now, I always say it's marked to be late at that point. If you turn in at 12:01 or 12:02, it's late. But I don't actually take any points off until we get to noon at Tuesday. At noon at Tuesday, everything closes, and you can't take it. But if you get it done before that, anytime between midnight and noon the next day on Tuesday, and you're kind of up late, don't feel the need to just rush and submit something that's incomplete because you want to make that 11:59 deadline. I won't take any points off for it coming in at 6 a.m. or 10 a.m., but it is technically late. It's sort of like your rent being due at, on the 1st of the month, but you pay it on the 3rd. There's no penalty. They don't report it to the bureau. Most landlords sort of say, it's due on the 1st, but it's not late till the 5th. And on the 5th, there's a fee. And same thing here. There's no penalty, but it is due at 11:59 p.m. I encourage you to meet that deadline, but keep in mind that you can take a little extra time. The only exception, usually if you do run into a problem and you need beyond that noon deadline, that noon time, which is the cutoff, you will need to ask permission. And if you get permission, I will on occasion can't grant permission. I don't usually, because everything's open at the beginning and you can work your way ahead. I'm a little less sympathetic to things that you should have maybe had some foresight, like I was going on vacation. But, like I was going on vacation, the internet went out. Like that's kind of like, you're going on vacation, maybe you should have worked ahead. But beyond that, I usually am pretty understanding if you get sick, you have sick children, just things didn't go quite as planned. I'm usually willing to work with you on that and give you a little bit of extra time. But that is usually like a once, twice kind of thing. It's not an every single lesson kind of thing. If you ask me once or twice for a little bit extra time because you have a significant issue, I'm usually willing to give it, but don't make it go beyond that. Discussion boards, on the other hand, I don't give extra time on because discussion boards are discussions, and you can't have a discussion by yourself if you're the only one finishing it. The lesson certification is an honor system, and that's basically asking, did you do all the readings and all the homework? There's usually a lot of homework, and if you didn't do it, say false. You'll still get the 5 points for answering the question, and so you should at least answer it and say false. But then the next question is, what could be improved, what did you like, etc. And that one, only if you completed everything will you get credit for. So if you didn't do it, you should be honest and say false, but you won't get the second 5 points. All exams have a 1-hour time limit. That is strictly enforced. There are a couple later on that will have extra time, but those will be mentioned. And the reason why they have extra time is because most students have difficulty completing them within an hour, and so I give extra time, that way you don't feel rushed. As far as the exam format goes, they are sometimes multiple choice. There might be a few short answer questions. But because the online format doesn't always work well for logic, some of them are multiple choice and are a little bit different in setup from the homework itself. And so that's something kind of to keep in mind is, as long as you've done the homework and you've prepared and you've studied and you've reviewed it, you should be able to go in and take those exams. But some of the questions will be kind of different. Instead of saying, doing a truth table and you have to write a bunch of T's and F's, which is the way a truth table works, it might ask you, what would line 3 look like if you made these assumptions? And that would it look like this, this, or this? And you would have to do the truth table and then see which line would work. As far as the exams go, if you want to use notes or look back, if you're having difficulty understanding something, you can, but like I mentioned, there is a 1-hour time limit. If you find any errors throughout the semester in this course, you find a time that's wrong, you find a grammatical error, you find a spelling error, things like that, they are in the lessons. I will give you 1 extra credit point for every error you find. So that's something kind of to keep in mind and maybe try to look for. It not only improves my work, but it also, I think, gives you some, satisfaction and knowing that, that you saw an error and that, you're helping to improve the course and that you're getting some sort of reward for that. It encourages you to answer that, and it also encourages me to be more diligent. And then finally, before I go, I always like to throw out a little bit. This course was actually one I took over a few years ago from a former instructor who'd been here for many years, Marty Morris. And some of the stuff in the course is still Marty's. Some of his lessons are there. And so some of the stuff is his. And I kind of always feel like I owe a debt of gratitude and should say that up here front. Marty became ill with cancer, and I took over the course right before it was going to begin. And so I kind of ran with it, and I liked a lot of what he did, so I've continued to use it and revise it. But some of the stuff that you'll notice there's him, if there's Monty Python references, some cartoons, things like that, that all comes from Marty. Marty had a pretty good sense of humor and was a funny guy. I never met him. I knew him from talking on the phone and exchanging emails back and forth, but I never actually met him. And so, but he was, from every account, was a very humorous guy. Just a final little story about his sense of humor. When he got cancer, he died about within a year of finding out. He had less than a year after finding out he had cancer. He got a shirt that said, "I'm not dead yet," across it. And that sometimes people with cancer will say, like they feel like they're already dead. People are treating them like they're dead or sick, and they don't like that. And so he said, "I'm not dead yet." And when he did die, they put that shirt on him and they crossed out the "not" and the "yet," and it said, "I'm dead," with those other 2 words crossed out. And that was kind of the joke that Marty would have apparently greatly appreciated, which is also just funny that you would have that, and even in your own death, be that kind of have that sense of humor. So when you see that, I kind of that always reminds me of when you see some of the humor. That's also thanks to Marty, and I want to say thank you to him. I don't think I have anything else. You have any questions, concerns, comments? Send them along. Email me, call me, text me, do whatever you want. Get a hold of me. I prefer email, not because of anything other than that's just kind of one place I keep track of a little bit better. But I'm perfectly happy. If you have a quick question, text and phone are perfectly acceptable. I'm also quite fine with phone. But I just kind of want to tell you, don't be afraid. Get a hold of me and enjoy your semester.